You can now get a 30-day trial to experience The Athletic for free. Visit the link in the description below to try it now.
Hello, welcome to Tifo IRL. I'm JJ Bull, and in this video, we're going to look at the best ever Liverpool teams, well, 3 of them anyway, from the past. And look at their stats on Football Manager, which is a good way to judge how good they actually were, because we hired someone to build these teams. He's a mad scientist, and he did it well. But the best thing is that I'm joined by the ghost of Iain Macintosh, currently trapped within the library in the North Tower of Castle Macintosh.
Hello, JJ. How are you?
I'm good. I feel less spooky than you.
Well, it's a little cold in here. We're having the roof done, but I think it's all right.
Are you the only spirit within this realm?
For now. We'll see how the rest of this show goes.
That's good. So the first team we're going to look at is one of the best ever Liverpool teams, and it is the 1976-77 team. I, of course, know who the manager was, but why don't you remind everyone else who that was, Iain?
This is a fascinating team because it's obviously post-Shankly, when he quits and he regrets it deeply. He keeps showing up at the training ground, and his mild-mannered assistant, Bob Paisley, takes over. And so you've got the kind of last vestiges of that Shankly team starting to coalesce with the Bob Paisley trophy machine. He becomes one of the most successful managers, well, until Sir Alex Ferguson pops up on the scene. But this is fascinating. This is a team that very nearly won the treble some 23 years before Manchester United did it. They only fell short in the FA Cup final to, ironically enough, Manchester United.
That's good. If you do hear some rumbling in the background, it is because they are doing construction work on Castle Macintosh.
Yes.
Which is the wrong time of year to do it, when there's all the ghosts being spooky.
It's frightening the rats.
Now let's look through the team then, right? So almost every team in this era, if I'm not wrong, played 4-4-2.
Absolutely.
Right, so let's put a 4-4-2 in here. It's already there. Now, that's what the kind of setup would be like. We're not doing any tactics because it's not going to really matter. But the key players, like Ray Clemence was the goalkeeper. I recognise his name. He seemed to be quite good. It's described as a world-class goalkeeper. Is that accurate for Ray Clemence?
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant for Liverpool. Went on to be brilliant for Tottenham. He would have had more England caps had it not been for the fact that a succession of England managers believed in rotating the goalkeepers. Like they couldn't decide who was better, Peter Shilton or Ray Clemence. So they kind of had them on a near constant rotation. Enormous hands. Absolutely enormous hands.
Doesn't have that listed in the stats here. It's a shame.
And it is a shame. And it is also there are periods during this era where the goalkeepers aren't even wearing gloves. They're just out there in a brutal English winter, barehanded.
I remember my dad telling me about that. I was thinking that, we can even go in 5s without that now. All right, so the right back in this team was almost always Phil Neal, isn't it?
Yep, just an icon of solidity, Phil Neal. Just did everything really, really well.
English right back,
barely put a foot wrong.
Solid player, right?
It's such a shame because he's now far better known for the sort of cartoon character that he seemed to be in the Graham Taylor documentary, where he comes across a bit like a yes man. There was also a rather unfortunate interview he did with The Guardian a few years ago that got him into a lot of trouble. But when he had a player like Phil Neal, you just did not have to worry about that bit of the pitch ever again.
How about the centre-backs? Let's put them both in. Who played at centre-back?
So you've got a young Phil Thompson, skinny kid, brought up not
the guy
far.
off of Sky Sports?
The very same.
Him.
He is, at this point, so slender that he is about 30% nose. But he's a fantastic, give it all and everything kind of defender. Very, very young in these days. He is also in the squad for a team we'll talk about soon, but it's just as he starts to drop out of relevance in some style, actually, but we'll come to that later.
So he's 22 here, it says, yeah.
And then you've got the crazy horse, Emlyn Hughes.
The crazy horse, Emlyn Hughes, okay.
Predates even me a bit, but I know him first of all from being a Question of Sport captain, but he is your kind of...
That's a TV show in the UK.
He's your gigantic character defender, shouting and cajoling everybody. And my favourite thing about Emlyn Hughes, which again is a tragedy, he had a very big career, but he has 2 children, a boy called Emlyn and a girl called Emma Lynn.
Oh, that's good.
Make of that what you will.
So, yeah, okay. It's described as a elite midfielder, that doesn't seem right, but he's in there. And left back, what we'll put in is...
Got to be Joey Jones.
Joey Jones.
Joey Jones, subject of one of the greatest banners in the history of football.
Yes.
But through the European Cup, they've beaten a French side, they've beaten a Swiss side, and they've got Borussia Mönchengladbach in the final. And so the legend is Joey Jones ate the frog's legs, made the Swiss roll, and now he's Mönchengladbach. They do good banners.
Right, if it's 4-4-2, right, who are the wingers? I want to know who the wingers were.
Well, this is a period of football where squads are generally like 12 to 16 players plus some kids to kind of pack out the numbers. So yeah, there will be loads and loads of arguments on this. There are different positions people can play because they had to. You can put in a young Jimmy Case here, who's a proper little tyro on the right flank.
On the right wing, yeah, okay. Let's have a look. Jimmy Case. This is how we have interpreted his numbers. Very good at long shots, apparently. Not hugely quick, not amazing at many things, actually.
I think that might have been a little bit harsh. Every team needs a Jimmy Case. His autobiography is quite something if you get a chance to read that. And then I would probably go with Ray Kennedy on the left.
On the left, okay, let's put him left.
Pops up in an Arsenal team that we do.
Is that right, Ray Kennedy? Here he is. So this guy looks infinitely better. Described as a midfield centre, but he plays in the wing for Liverpool. I guess he probably came inside quite a lot.
Very classy player. He won the double with Arsenal 6 years before this, and very sadly got Parkinson's quite early, and so did not get to enjoy the retirement the way he would have wanted. But yeah, he was an outstanding player. Yeah,
these are good stats for these players. This would be good in the modern game. My word, right?
You've got to have Terry McDermott in the middle, haven't you?
I remember Terry McDermott best as being one of the Newcastle assistant managers for years. He was there for years and years and years.
He's part of that archetypal perm and moustache collection of Liverpool players. And what you've got here is, because Shankly has inculcated this, there's a sense of professionalism and work rate and determination, and it's allied to just doing everything really, really simply. But the standards are so high that you have so many players who just come in and they're just really good at everything. They're really good, strong characters. And what it means is that you have this progression through the years where players come in and they are kind of, they come into a club with a very clearly defined culture, and they either fit into that culture or they don't fit into the club at all. And that's why it keeps going through different managers.
Because the start of the boot room, is this where this sort of...
Yeah, you have Shankly to Paisley to Fagan to Dalglish, and they just stay really, really good for a really long time. Even though there's very few players that you would say like head and shoulders above everything else. They're a collective here.
So that's Terry McDermott is part of the midfield in this team. The other midfielder, is it Callahan?
Yeah, you're bringing Callahan there.
Yeah.
Another fine player. And then up top, and this is kind of harsh on Steve Highway. Steve Highway was a fantastic, he could play on the wing, he could play up front, went on to work with the Youth Academy for many, many years.
Let's look at him.
I kind of like Jimmy Case because I interviewed him once and I thought he was really funny. So
it's a good number, Steve Highway.
Oh yeah, fine player.
Quick winger, it looks like.
But going up top, I would go with your proper big man, little man, John Toshak as your target man.
John Toshak, so I remember him, I know him best as being the manager of Real Madrid. So he's gone from being he was always a Welsh man. He went from being a Welsh centre forward, target man for Liverpool in this 70s team, 76, 77 we're on. And then went to, how did he get into management? Where did he go, Swansea first?
He went to Swansea, yeah. He did very well actually with Swansea, and that really put him on the map. He obviously had a great reputation as a footballer, and that always goes a long way to helping you out. But he went to Sporting Lisbon, he went to Real Sociedad, and then he gets a Real Madrid job, I think for the first of 3 spells there.
And so the last player, I mean, everyone knows who Kevin Keegan is, right? But he was probably the best player in the world at some point. Was it this season?
Around about sort of late 70s, very early 80s. It's hard to put into words how big he was. He's a sort of proto David Beckham levels because he's a very, very good looking man. And he's a very good footballer. You don't want to damn him with faint praise. But he just made the absolute most of everything that he had, and he was so brave. If you get a chance, go onto YouTube, find some old Liverpool games from the 70s and just have a watch. There's a general pattern of players that the ball will get knocked up to Toshak. Toshak will win the header and bring it down. And then you have Keegan, who looks far smaller than his, what is he, 5'7",
I reckon, yeah.
because he's surrounded by these hulking 1970s centre-backs. And what happens is very close to what happens if a canary ever escapes and finds a pack of crows. The crows attempt to peck the canary to death. Kevin Keegan just gets kicked up in the air again and again and again. He gets bundled into, and every time, like he's not even wearing shin pads. Every time he's back on his feet, brushes the mud out of his face, and he gets back on with it, and he's doing it again and again. He's just utterly relentless. He gets a big money move to Hamburg, who at the time one of the biggest teams in Europe.
Well, there's other players here, but don't need to mention them too much. Steve Highway is one we looked at.
Well, David Fairclough is a fascinating story.
Yeah.
His book is very good as well, because this was the period of one substitution. You could only have one player on the bench, and it was almost always David Fairclough, and he almost always comes off the bench and scores. He is your proto Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, if you like. He's got bright red hair, this thin, callow youth who just piles onto the pitch with 20 minutes to go and just looks faster and sharper. I think he's another one with a slightly unfair reputation. He was a good player, but he will be known forever as the original super sub. He's
got good stats in this. He's got a lot of mental attributes. He seems to have very high, been awarded very high.
Yeah, toss him on, he gets the job done.
Well, that's the 76-77 team. And next, we should look at the 83-84. So this is now the 1983-84 Liverpool team as we've put into Football Manager 2022. I know a lot of these people because most of them have been on the TV forever as the pundits, because Liverpool just owned everything. Basically everyone supported Liverpool around this period, right?
Yep, absolutely.
No matter where you're from. And it's mostly because they were on the TV all of the time. Because believe it or not, there wasn't always football all of the time, every single hour of the day. There was often just like one game a week or 2 games a week. And most often it'd be the most popular team who'd be on there, which was at the time Liverpool. So everyone supported them.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, that's pretty much my story as well. I was brought up in Essex. We didn't really have a big team knocking around. Liverpool were always on the telly, so I just assumed I supported Liverpool right up until my dad took me to Southend, and I generally don't think that was an improvement in my life. But it was a more real experience.
Now, in your haunted library, do you have information on the following players? People
Always.
Like, for example, Bruce Grobbelaar.
Well, Bruce Grobbelaar was everyone's got someone they were in the playground, and I was Bruce Grobbelaar
Is that
in
right?
my playground. Absolutely. Well,
the goalie?
I'm terrible at football, so I realised at about the age of 6 that if I wanted to ever take part in anything, I had to go in goal.
Okay.
So I'll be hurling myself around on concrete and trying to do handstands, and that's very much the Bruce Grobbelaar way. He's a fascinating story. You know, you go from having Ray Clements, one of the most solid, trustworthy goalkeepers of his generation, into Bruce Grobbelaar, who turns up, and he's insane. It's well worth checking him out on YouTube. He was a soldier in the Rhodesian Bush Wars. He played in Canada for Vancouver, and then he ends up being the goalkeeper for what is arguably the best club side in Europe at that time. And he's got a tendency to rush off his goal line. He makes hideous mistakes. Sometimes he's incredible in the air, and sometimes he's dropping stuff at the feet of strikers. So he's a very, very controversial choice. But this is the season that he makes his name. That's why he's got an eccentricity of 20.
Yes.
And the only reason it's 20 is because you can't have 21.
And a lot of fun to watch is probably why people remember him so fondly as well, right?
People remember him from the penalty shootout in this team,
yes.
In which his legs turn to, they look like wet spaghetti. I don't know how he manages it, and whether or not it has an effect on the Italian players as they're lining up to take penalties, we don't know, but Liverpool won.
So this is the season that Liverpool won treble, right? So they won the European Cup,
yes,
which is what it was called then, and the first division, which is what the Premier League is now, and the League Cup, which is still pointless.
Well, this is a period where Liverpool just kept winning. They win it 4 times in a row through this period. It just becomes their trophy. And I think this is the year where they have a very controversial victory over Everton, who are, though no one really realises it at this time, the rising power in English football. And they will go on to be brilliant the following season. This is Joe Fagan's team, but it's kind of Bob Paisley's team. he's finished up.
Because Fagan took over in the summer, right?
Yeah, so the line of succession goes down the boot room at this point, and it's Joe Fagan's turn. To know more about this team, you have to read Tony Evans' book about this side, because it's absolutely brilliant. And it's a team of huge characters, and I think you've met them all. So definitely keep an eye out for this one. But it's one of the periods where Liverpool. There is a legend about Liverpool that you think they are always this team of entertainers. It's the Liverpool way, pass and move and everything. That's not necessarily true. There are periods where they're quite boring. The whole passing the ball back to the goalkeeper, who can then kick it up and roll it out to a defender, and then he can pass it back to the goalkeeper. There are aspects of that. There are aspects of long ball football. But this is where they become the kind of Cavaliers. Yeah,
and win the European Cup. For one of the many times they've done that. And that's an important point. The not handball rule, the pass back rule wasn't a thing then. So you could literally just pass it out and pass it back to the goalie and waste loads of time. Well, let's look at the team though. It's 4-4-2 as ever, right? There's some differences to the rules. I've put Grobbelaar as a sweeper, keeper and attack.
Yes.
That makes the most sense, right? Right back, was it Phil Neal still?
So yeah, you've got Phil Neal here. Coming towards the end of his Liverpool career, but
a better player than he was in the earlier one. There we go. Yeah,
just as solid as ever.
Yeah. So should we put him in at right back?
He can get the nod there. Steve Nicol is coming through. I think he only cost 100,000 from Ayr in Scotland, and Nicol was amazing because he could play in basically every position. In fact, about 5 years after this, Liverpool had an injury crisis and went to Newcastle, and they had to put Nicol up front, and he scored a hat-trick. And there was basically nowhere he couldn't play.
All right, but Alan Kennedy goes in the left back though, isn't he?
Yeah, Alan Kennedy. He doesn't last much longer at Liverpool after this. Kenny Dalglish decides to change when he takes over in '86. But this is a big one for him because it's him who scores the penalty, who wins the European Cup.
Ah,
yeah.
That's kind of info I like. Ball-playing defenders, I think it is, isn't it?
Well, this is the game where Phil Thompson, who is Mr. Liverpool, is dropped for the
final of the European Cup.
He doesn't make the team in the final of the European Cup. And I don't know why they would do this, but maybe it was just the Liverpool way of making it clear that it was time to move on. He wasn't even allowed on the bus to the game. He had to get on the bus with the players' wives. And he was furious. Absolutely. I mean, you can imagine Phil Thompson at the best of times is furious. But that hit him really, really hard, and he left the club not long after that.
Yeah, geez, I bet. So he didn't get in the bench then for the final. So
you've got Hansen and Lauritsen, probably the classiest defensive partnership in football at this time.
Hansen is the one who, of course, said that you don't win anything with kids, in reference to Alex Ferguson's Man United team, who won everything with the kids.
And in fairness, at that stage, he was right. It was past tense. No one had won stuff with kids.
It's when Scotland had good players, like Alan Hansen and...
Well, there's this huge... the spine to this team is Scottish, because you've got Hansen, and we'll come on to him later, Souness and Dalglish.
Yeah.
You've got Gillespie and Nicol coming through the ranks as well.
Let's put Lauritsen in as the other centre-back.
Yeah. Fantastic players. They both had their pelters as pundits, but the level at which they played consistently on terrible pitches in a time of football where you could get lumps kicked out of you, they were both brilliant.
He's listed as a full-back here, Lauritsen, but that's not right. He was a centre-back.
I think he was a centre-back. He came in from Brighton, but again, this is the era where players have to be able to play more than one position because there just aren't big squads.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so...
Only one choice here.
Talking on the spine, yeah. In a ball-winning midfield role, it's got to be Graham Souness, who is... he looks quite scary on the TV, but as a player, he was...
Yeah, he's got...
Crazy.
He's got Begbie vibes. He is genuinely terrifying. He's not even that big a guy. He's not this hulking brute or anything.
But players like him look bigger because of the way they carry themselves.
Yeah, and he always seems to be snarling, even when he's not. He was considered to be quite flash. He liked to wear a nice suit and drink champagne. People weren't always that sure of him. They definitely weren't sure of him when he hit them at about hip height.
And then claimed he was fouled. Yeah.
And this being a period where you could do that, and that would be your warning. And then if you did it again, that would be a yellow card. And then very reluctantly, you might get sent off.
player traits for him we put in winds up opponents and dives into tackles, which seems absolutely correct.
But he was the kind of player you want when you've got 10 minutes left and you're either seeing out a win or you're trying to charge and retake one. He was an incredible professional, a supremely intelligent footballer who gave absolutely everything.
Okay, so beside him in the midfield, in the centre, you've got options like Sammy Lee, who was Sam Allardyce's assistant manager for a long time, like this.
Yep, just a great big ball of energy, a little ball of energy, constantly getting in scraps along with the rest of this team, to be honest. You'd want Sammy Lee in there.
I'll put him in. But Craig Johnston, I like this one. He's the guy who invented the Adidas Predator boot. He invented that.
So he's a very rare thing to have an Australian in English football.
He's English, but he's Australian, this guy. Yeah.
He stands out at Middlesbrough, first of all. He's all pace and acceleration. He's so hungry. He's not probably on a technical level on the same standard as many of the Liverpool players, but he really, really wants it. This isn't the happiest season for him. He thinks that he should be a first team player, but he seems to be constantly coming off the bench, which in fairness is kind of how most of his career will go. But he does end up scoring a goal in the 1986 FA Cup final against Everton, and pretty much until Harry Kewell hits puberty is generally regarded as one of the best Australian footballers ever. So it's not all bad.
And up front, so we'll go with the wingers, right? So they play two wingers. So I've got it as a 4-2-4, but a lot of teams were a 4-4-2, but really it was a 4-2-4 in attack a lot of the time. Yeah,
so you'd have Ronnie Whelan on the left, who not really as an out-and-out winger, kind of like a left-sided version of what Ray Houghton would later be, sort of cutting inside. He eventually becomes just a sort of straight-out central midfielder.
It's like an inverted winger almost. Very modern kind of tactical thing, yeah.
Very, very elegant player. He was not dissimilar to Kevin Sheedy at Everton. Beautiful touch, beautiful eye for a pass, wonderfully creative player.
And then I guess we're putting in, who do we put in as the winger? Look at the squad. Who do we put in here as the right winger? So I know that these two are going to be up top. Is it one of these lads? Who are we putting as the right winger?
No, I think you could put Craig Johnston there.
But in real life, he was in and out of the team. All right, well, fine, we'll put him in there anyway. So then we'll look at the two forwards now. Iain Rush, right? So he played so long that I remember him joining Newcastle as he's just a poacher. Iain Rush, very famous with his moustache. Goal, the penalty box poacher, quite quick as far as I remember. What was his
Very,
stats
very
like?
quick.
There we go. He's like a little Michael Owen, although he's not quite as fast as I think he should be.
Yeah, I'm not sure about some of these ratings. Rush was Rush's thing was just to stand on the shoulder of the defender and wait for the ball. And when you've got players like Whelan and Dalglish there with those passes, his acceleration from a standing start, he'd just go straight into fifth gear. And finishing, there's been very, very few players. A kind of similar player to Lineker in some ways, in that...
How about a more modern player?
I don't really do
Michael
modern
Owen?
football, JJ. Yeah,
he's quite old
a
now.
little bit Michael Owen. But if he was one-on-one with the keeper, he was scoring. I think this is the season they beat Everton 5-0, and he tears them to pieces. It's a punishment beating of a game. And then Dalglish, who you can't possibly do justice to. Just one of the most intelligent, canny, technically accomplished footballers who could find space where there was no space. He had his trademark move of creating enough room by sticking his gigantic bottom out and forcing people away. Like his bum was a one-man bouncer, and that would give him the room. A very decent finisher in his own right. He would become manager in one season after this. He would become player manager of Liverpool. Yep. And in the game which they needed to win the title, he pops up and scores against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, and they actually win the double.
There's a story Alan Shearer tells about him when he was manager of Newcastle, and Shearer was one of his players. And he says that in training, Shearer was trying to steal the ball off him, but Dalglish turned before he even get close. And he said, "How do you know I was there?" Because he had his back to him. And Dalglish says he could see your shadow.
Yeah. And that's all you need to know about Dalglish.
Now he would be, if we're looking at tactics of it, right? So he'd be like a deep line forward, second striker.
Yeah, you'd want him sitting deep, and it would be just that simple touch.
Yeah.
That threaded through ball, something just to unlock the defence.
These sorts of positions.
And of course, like all the players in this team, they're all warriors. Yeah. They're all fighting all the time. There's no luxury players here.
So that is that's the 83-84 team that won the treble. Don't want to spoil what happens when we play these teams against each other, but Iain Rush does score a very good goal in one of the games in our other video on Tifo IRL. But now we're going to look at the last of our old teams, not even that old. It's the Istanbul Champions League winners of 04-05. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah. So let's look at them now. So this is the last team we're going to look at in our little video, and this is like I said, the Istanbul Champions League winners of 04-05. I watched this in my student halls. I remember being AC Milan going 3-0 up, and of course, a Steven Gerrard kind of inspired comeback is how they end up winning the game. Now, the goalkeeper in this team, and this isn't even that long ago, so these stats are probably exactly from Championship Manager 04-05 at the time. So Jerzy Dudek, who, as we're talking about Bruce Grobbelaar earlier, the guy who was in the Rhodesian Wars,
Bush Wars,
he does the spaghetti legs in the penalty shootout. But the player still scores.
Yeah.
So he gets, remember, he gets heralded for being like all that wild stuff, but it doesn't actually do anything. He was all right, Dudek.
Well, he makes an incredible double save in extra time. But he also, and people always forget this bit, he also gets very nervous towards the end and he drops a routine ball. And Jamie Carragher, who I think both hamstrings have gone, or like both sides of his groin have gone, Jamie Carragher goes thermonuclear crazy at Jerzy Dudek, screaming at him to concentrate as the game. It was a weird extra time. Everyone remembers the comeback, and everything after that was very, very nervy.
Speaking of iconic Liverpool players, Steve Finnan.
Anyone who can go from non-league to the European Cup.
Jamie Carragher was genuinely a brilliant player.
Yeah.
Like, superb. Was he a ball-playing defender? I'd say he was more just a central defender on defend, maybe a stopper even.
Funny one, because he started out as a midfielder.
Like a DM, yeah.
He played left-back for almost an entire season. And before moving into the centre of defence, where
people like for England as well.
He's just the team leader. You know, Gerrard was the captain, but Carragher didn't need an armband.
I've heard it said that Carragher was, basically the second captain, if not the captain.
Yeah.
Of that Liverpool team. Anyway, there's Jamie Carragher. He's in the team there. He played alongside Sami Hyypiä, who was a really, I think he wasn't overrated or underrated. He was rated, but maybe not as much as he could have been.
Well, I think
so underrated.
One of the things with him was he'd come in at a period where Liverpool had been very, very leaky at the back. And him and Stefan Henschels and then Jamie Carragher just represented a stability that hadn't been known for a while.
Now, Jimmy Traoré played the Champions League final. I wouldn't really, Jimmy Traoré, we're going to put him in because that's who played the Champions League final here.
Yeah.
John Arnorisa was really the wide left defender. He played in the final on this left wing here. So we'll put him in as a winger. This is where he played in the final, which I guess is because Benitez, very defensive coach, means you've got an extra person over here when you're defending against AC Milan. And the AC Milan team they played against was...
It was brilliant.
Crazy.
They shouldn't have had a chance. That 3-0 at half-time utterly reflected the gap in quality. I mean, we actually had some heated discussions while making this series because I didn't believe this team was even in the top 25 of Liverpool teams. Mm-hmm. I wanted the one from the late 80s. But obviously, in order to give it a good balance, we went for this one. But there are key players in here. You've just picked one of them. Xabi Alonso.
Superb. Obviously, he went and played for Bayern Munich for a while. It was really important for Spain. His technical ability was the long passing and the vision to see those balls were good. But again, all these players that are important for Liverpool all seem to have leadership 20, determination 20. Again, these aren't the actual Football Manager stats. These are ones that we have got someone to make. And they're all very good. Some of them. They're very good. They're very good. But some. So that's Alonso who plays as DLP, and often you'd see for Spain or whatever, you'd sit in a 6 role here, but you played in that role there. The other centre midfielder, I should say, Didi Hamann, signed from Newcastle, a German guy, could absolutely smash him in from long range. Long shots should be high. Nope. So that's one thing. Hard-working centre midfielder.
I mean, he should have been in the hole from the start of the game. This is where Benitez's major error was to not have anyone shutting down Kaka. Remember Kaka?
Yeah, he was great, man. Let's put him here next to Alonso and DLP, and we can put Gerrard as more of a box-to-box.
And then, this is the game that is the thing you always think of when it comes to Gerrard.
Steven Gerrard game.
Yeah, he's all things and everywhere. I actually think that his best period was sort of 2008, 2009, where Rafa Benitez seemingly just went, I can't make you stay in position, so I'm just going to lean into it and just go behind Torres and just do whatever you like.
Genuinely,
And
his
he
stats
was
are amazing that
brilliant.
season. Yeah, and he just plays like this second striker and gets in behind them all the time. These
Yeah.
sorts of areas here. But in this game, we're going to put him as a box-to-box.
Famously once hauled off in a really hot-tempered Merseyside derby, with Benitez saying afterwards that he needed more heads and fewer hearts, which was quite a thing to say about the best player in your football team.
Yes.
He was probably right.
Options that Liverpool had at the time. Harry Kewell could play there on the right. You had Vladimir Smicer, who came on at half-time, I think, or in the second half certainly, and made a big difference.
Yeah, Luis Garcia, he drank sangria.
Yeah. He was I seem to remember him being a left-footed kind of
Yeah,
Spanish player.
he could play off the left, he could play off the right, he could even play up front. Harry Kewell, it's sad with Harry Kewell by this point because the injuries are starting to catch up with him. He actually limps off after about 15 minutes in this game.
Who plays him? Who comes on?
I think it would have been Schmeichel, wouldn't it?
Is that where Smicer came on? Yeah, I can't remember when he came on. I just remember him scoring that goal that helped him get back into it.
And then the most astonishing thing, when you look at the players that we've been talking about, you know, the Dalglish and Rush and Toshak and Keegan, and you look at this list of strikers, and with the best will in the world, there isn't anyone to hold a candle to some of the great Liverpool strikers. You've got Milan Baros, who is, you know, very, very here and there, and Djibril Cissé, who certainly has his moments. It is astonishing.
And Milan Baros started. I mean, Djibril Cissé I'd never really rated him very much, to be honest. Morientes was quite a very famous Spanish player. He was decent enough.
Yeah,
some decent stats here.
A little more static.
That's very generous.
He was very good in the air.
Again, these are very good. They're very good stats, but
It's a game of opinions.
there we go. And that was the Liverpool team that won that Champions League. The last thing I want to do before we stop this whole video, right, is go through and see how much they all cost according to this game. So the transfer market value, according to this, of this team, Xabi Alonso is worth more than Steven Gerrard apparently, which I don't know about that. But these are the sort of monies we're looking at here. If I go into the team that I managed in the game we played, I want to see what this 83-84 transfer value. Here we go. So Ian Rush is the most expensive according to this.
Yeah, you'd double both of those.
Yeah, I think you're right. And then if we go into the last team, which of course was the one that Alex Stewart looked after in the game, I need to turn that into transfer. Here they go. Most expensive, Kevin Keegan.
Yeah,
I think he's the most valuable. There you go. The most valuable player ever in Liverpool's history apparently is Kevin Keegan.
Couldn't argue.
There we go. Well, that's all the old teams we put into Football Manager. You can watch the actual challenge. We play against each other on Tifo IRL. Definitely do that. And hopefully at some point Iain returns to full body rather than spirit world ghost.
Yes, my family are building a pentagram as we speak, and once they've found the requisite amounts of rat's blood, we'll be ready to go.
Well, let's hope that happens. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.
If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. And if you do enjoy Tifo, then you'll probably also like The Athletic. If you watch our tactics videos, you should go and read Michael Cox. If you're into data, read Mark Carey. And if you're into transfers, it's David Ornstein. Plus, if you're a fan of any Premier League team, then there's a journalist dedicated to you, and you can try it for free for 30 days now by clicking the link in the description.